He shoved the door open with his shoulder. A bassinet banged against the frame. Diaper bags dropped onto my rug. Darren didn't even look up. She's being discharged now. Reese and the baby are coming here, he said. They'll live here. It's decided. I didn't answer. He moved past me like the space wasn't mine. Straight into the guest room, my sewing room. He pulled open the closet, pushed aside the boxes of fabric I hadn't touched in months. The same boxes he helped me carry in after his father died. The crib's coming next, he muttered. We'll need to move this stuff out. Maybe the garage. I looked down at the yarn basket I kept by the sofa. The baby socks I had started knitting, no one had asked for them. No one had told me she was giving birth this week. I found out from a neighbor. I thought you were looking at apartments, I said finally. We were, he said, voice flat. But that fell through. Her mom said no, and we can't afford anything right now. The faucet in the kitchen still dripped. I hadn't fixed it yet. I hadn't planned for this. She needs rest. He continued, grabbing a pile of folded quilts off the bed. And space. I told her this place would be fine. You've got the couch. I followed him into the hallway. You told her. He turned annoyed. It's just temporary. I nodded slowly. The bassinet sat where my armchair used to be. My reading corner gone. He didn't see the way I looked at the crib. He didn't hear what wasn't said. Reese arrived an hour later. Pale, silent, still in her hospital gown, under a jacket. She didn't hug me. She walked straight to the guest room and closed the door. That night I laid a blanket on the couch. The lamp buzzed overhead. I counted the sounds between baby cries and the quiet creak of my floorboards. My feet ached. No one asked if I'd eaten. I hadn't. The next morning, Reese's voice came sharp through the wall. She left the bottles out. Doesn't she know they need to be sterilized? I stood in the kitchen doorway, unseen. Darren mumbled something. I caught only, she's trying. Then the door clicked shut again. Later, a stranger's voice called from the front door delivery guy. He handed over a box. Reese's name on the label. My address. I watched her unwrap baby monitors, a sound machine, a nursing pillow. She opened a drawer, pushed aside my folded napkins, and slid her things in without a glance. I poured coffee. Darren came into the kitchen. His tie was crooked. He looked past me at the fridge. Do you have eggs? He asked. Yes, I said. I didn't move. He opened the fridge anyway. Took two. Closed it with his foot. You're okay with this, right? He asked, mouthful. I sipped my coffee. He took my silence for yes. That night, I sat with the porch light off. No one noticed I was outside. I watched the shadows move across the blinds. The crib. The bassinet. Reese's voice soft and demanding. I didn't cry. Instead, I reached behind the bookshelf. Pried open the panel. My fingers brushed against the cold metal edge of the lockbox Robert installed after his stroke. I pulled it out. It was heavier than I remembered. The combination still worked. Inside the folder waited, and just beneath it, his note. Still folded. Still mine. I held it in both hands, then looked up at the house I was no longer in. It was time to reread what he'd left me. I yanked the sofa cushions off with one pull. A fitted sheet. A thin blanket. One pillow that had lost its shape years ago. That was my new bed, set up in less than a minute. Because no one asked if I needed anything more. The living room still smelled like hospital disinfectant from Reese's bags. Formula cans lined the counter. Bottles filled the sink. The dishwasher blinked red, overloaded. I moved slowly, picking up one thing at a time, putting pieces of my old life aside to make room for theirs. Reese stayed behind the closed bedroom door all morning. Darren hovered near her, tiptoeing, whispering, moving as if I were the guest in my own home. I folded the sheet tighter around the couch cushion. The fabric scratched my forearm. Temporary, I told myself, but the word had started to lose shape. By noon, the baby started crying again. A piercing, exhausted cry. I walked toward the sound, but the door closed in my face. Reese's voice came through it, thin and sharp. Did she wash the bottles? Why are they still in the sink? Darren mumbled something. I didn't catch it. I went back to the kitchen and turned on the faucet. Warm water, then hotter. I scrubbed the bottles. Even the ones they hadn't used yet. Plastic clinked against the sink, echoing through the quiet house that used to feel like mine. I lined the pieces on a towel. Not one word from either of them. No thank you. No acknowledgement. Not even eye contact. I cooked dinner because someone had to. Chicken, rice, vegetables. Simple. Cheap. Darren grabbed a plate and disappeared into the hallway without looking at me. Reese didn't come out. The door clicked shut again. I ate, standing up by the counter. Later, I heard footsteps behind me. You should really keep the stove cleaner, Reese said, glancing at a speck of oil like it was a stain on her life. It's not safe with a newborn. She never looked at my face. She walked away like she expected the house to fall in line behind her. That night, when the baby cried again, I sat upright on the couch. My back ached. The blanket slid to the floor. I pulled it up and tucked it under my legs, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly, almost mockingly. The crying didn't stop. Someone knocked something over. Darren's voice rose, tired, irritated. Mom, do you know where the pacifier is? I got up. Found it in a drawer, handed it to him. He took it without meeting my eyes. By dawn, my neck was stiff. The baby had finally slept. Silence hung in the hallway like something fragile. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, brewed coffee, and let the steam warm my hands. Reese walked out, hair piled on her head blanket around her shoulders. You didn't warm the bottles correctly last night, she said quietly. The baby was fussy because of that. I swallowed. She wasn't asking, she was blaming. She turned and walked away. I looked at the sink already full again. Bottles, plates, a pacifier floating in cold water. I rolled up my sleeves and reached in, feeling the chill climb up my arms. As I washed, I felt something inside me settle. Not acceptance, not peace. Something else. Something steadier. By the time the water turned warm again, I knew this wasn't going to stop on its own. And it wouldn't stop because I hoped it would. I dried my hands, glanced toward the guest room door, and thought about the lockbox I'd opened the night before. The folder wasn't leaving my mind. It was the one thing in this house that still felt like mine, and I wasn't finished with it yet. I wiped the counter again. Not because it was dirty, because I needed something to do with my hands. Something repetitive. Something silent. Voices floated in from the guest room. Darren's low, careful, Reese's sharper, clipped. I told her we didn't need help, Reese muttered. She's just here. A pause. Darren didn't speak. She keeps putting her name on things. Groceries, the baby's stuff, like it's hers. Still no reply from him. My chest burned, not from rage, just that tight, dull squeeze you get when you realize your place has already been reassigned. Just here, not Mom, not Grandma. Just here. I kept wiping. That afternoon, Darren asked me to print a few things, some health forms from the hospital. I opened the email attachment and scrolled through. Vaccination records, pediatric referrals, birth certificate. I stopped. Under emergency contacts, there were two names, Darren Hart, Reese Bennett, no third name, no backup, no me. I read it again slower, like maybe it would change, like maybe the file was incomplete. I was a backup generator they forgot to install, a plug they used, then ignored. I printed it, placed it under the others. My hand didn't shake, but my stomach twisted. Not from shock, from confirmation. They were building a life. I wasn't in it. The baby cried again that night. I rocked her for an hour while Reese slept, mouth-open arms thrown across my clean laundry. Darren stayed at work late. He didn't say goodnight when he came in. I heard the fridge door open, then the microwave beep. In the morning, Reese posted a photo of the baby sleeping. The caption read, "Our little family finally settled in." I wasn't tagged. She used my tablecloth in the picture, my sofa in the background, my house, my air. I didn't comment. Instead, I made coffee, poured it into my chipped ceramic mug, and carried it to the back porch. Sat on the same step I'd sat on the night after Robert's funeral. Back then, I'd felt lost, but still known. Now I was erased while still breathing. I set the coffee down and opened the manila folder from the lockbox. Title: Property Trust, Velma Hart Clause. 2C. This property may not be transferred occupied long-term or reassigned without explicit written consent of Velma Hart. Violations will result in legal action or immediate termination of residence. I read it twice, then again. Not a suggestion, a clause. I picked up my coffee and let it cool in my hand. They hadn't erased me. They just didn't know what I still held. And I hadn't decided when to let them find out. I handed Darren my credit card. Again. He said they just needed a few things: formula wipes, some special soap for the baby's skin. I didn't argue. I said use it and bring it back. He didn't bring it back. He left it on the counter 2 days later. By then, $143.21 was gone. Groceries, gas, coffee. I checked the receipt. Reese had picked the expensive kind of diapers. She added organic snacks, a candle. My name wasn't on any of it, but my money was. She took my car without asking. Said she needed to run to the pharmacy. Gone 3 hours. Came back with her nails done and iced coffee in my cup holder. Had to kill time while they filled the prescription. She shrugged. No prescription bag in sight. I said nothing. I kept cleaning, kept folding their laundry, paid the water bill because Darren forgot, paid the electric before it was late. Told myself it was easier this way, easier than arguing, easier than hearing them twist things around. I became the quiet machine they leaned on, the free caretaker. Reese posted another baby photo, this time in a yellow onesie I bought. The caption read, "Thanks to her grandma for the gift with a little heart." Not me. The other grandma. The one who wouldn't take them in. The one who hadn't held the baby once. I stared at that photo. My living room in the background. My blanket beneath her feet. I wasn't even cropped out. I was never in the frame. That night they asked me to take the 2 a.m. shift. Said they were exhausted beyond functioning. I got up. Fed her. Changed her. Rocked her for an hour. Reese didn't say thank you. She said, "You missed a snap on her onesie." I looked at her and just nodded. Next morning, I made pancakes. Put a few blueberries on the side. Darren took a plate and walked out. Reese didn't come out. I left hers in the fridge. By evening, the sink was full again. The baby was crying again. The mail had 2 hospital bills with my address on them. Darren dropped the envelope on the table. "You can toss those. They're already handled." But they weren't. I checked. One still showed pending insurance denial. Reese had listed my address, my phone number, my name. I brewed coffee, sat by the back door, held the warm mug in both hands while my joints ached from a night on the sofa. I didn't speak, but in my head, I started listing every receipt, every date, every call I didn't make and every one I would. I stood up, went back to the safe, pulled out the folder and placed it on the kitchen counter under a stack of old coupons. I wasn't planning to use it yet, but I needed it closer now. I slid the bookshelf away from the wall. The weight groaned against the floor. I braced my back, gripped the edges, and moved slow. My hands shook, but not from fear, just from the weight of remembering. Behind the second shelf, behind the worn copy of Birds of the Southwest, was the panel Robert had built after his first stroke. No key. Just pressure one firm push in the upper right corner. A click. I peeled it back. The safe was still there. Dust clung to the frame. The numbers were worn from years of silence. I turned the dial. Left, right, left again. It opened on the first try. Inside, one flat envelope, one leather folder, a folded letter, edges soft from age, his handwriting on the front. Velma. If you ever feel erased, start here. I didn't cry. I just sat. Opened the folder first. Inside the original deed. No co-owners, no liens. Signed by both of us. Notarized 23 years ago. Next revocable living trust, updated 2 years before he died. My name alone as trustee. Explicit language. This property shall remain in the sole possession and discretion of Velma Hart until the day she no longer wishes to reside in it. My fingers ran over the dry legal text like it was a prayer. They hadn't just underestimated me. They had no idea what house they'd walked into. I opened the letter last. Vel. If you're reading this, I'm likely gone, and someone has made you feel small. You never were. You aren't now. You carried this home on your back for decades. So if they ever try to write you out, remind them who held the pen. It was like he'd seen it coming. Not their faces, not the baby, but the shape of it. The taking, the assumption, the way people erase women like me with politeness and paperwork. I folded the note, slipped it back into the envelope. Then I stood, moved to the kitchen, took the coupons off the folder I'd left earlier, switched it out with the real one, put the original deed on top, let it sit in the open like any other piece of mail. No hiding anymore. That evening, Reese knocked a mug off the counter. It shattered. I swept it up while she sighed and said, "We really need to baby-proof this place." This place. I didn't answer. Darren walked in behind her. Saw the folder. Picked it up casually. Flipped through the top page. Didn't read. Just glanced. "Mail from the bank?" he asked. "No," I said. "Just something your father left." He nodded, uninterested. Put it back down like it meant nothing. Later that night, when the baby wouldn't sleep, I took her. Walked her back and forth through the hall I painted myself 2 summers ago. Whispered the same lullaby I used to sing to Darren when he had croup. She settled in my arms. The house went still. I watched the shadows stretch long across the floor. And I knew what came next. I stopped in the hallway. Darren's voice drifted in from the guest room, low, tired, but not quiet enough. "Yeah, her mom told us to figure it out on our own. Said she's done playing landlord." A pause. "No, we don't have a lease. We're just staying at my mom's. It's fine." I stood still. "We'll get back on our feet. It's just until Mom gives us the title. She won't fight us. She's not that kind of person." He laughed once. That short, careless kind of laugh. Like I was predictable. Like I was a button he knew how to press. I turned back into the kitchen, put the kettle on the stove, took it off. I didn't need tea. I needed air. I opened the window. The breeze hit my face, but it didn't clear anything. Just until Mom gives us the title. They hadn't even asked. They assumed. I remembered the way he used to tug my arm at the grocery store when he wanted candy. Not beg, not plead. Just assume I'd give in. He hadn't changed. Only the price of what he wanted had. Later that morning, Reese asked if I could watch the baby for a few while she showered. I nodded, held the baby close, looked at her soft cheeks. Thought about how fast this house had become a shelter for people who didn't care whose roof they were under. The baby slept. I sat down with a notebook. Started writing numbers. Mortgage paid in full 2009. Property tax current. Repairs over the years, roof pipes, septic. All paid by me. Alone. No title transfer ever discussed. No co-signers. No tenants. Not one dime from Darren. But somehow, they had already moved into the story like they belonged here. Like I was a placeholder. I folded the paper, tucked it into the folder, added a post-it note. He knows nothing about this house, not a single brick. I heard the shower shut off. Reese came out in one of my old bathrobes. She never asked, just took it from the back of the door. "Can you take out the trash?" she called out over her shoulder. "It smells." I stood, picked up the bag, tied it twice, carried it outside, walked it straight past the bin, opened the metal cabinet in the shed, slid it inside, shut the door, let it rot there a while. Back in the kitchen, Darren poured cereal into a mixing bowl. Milk splashed on the counter. He didn't wipe it. Reese's mom said we could have stayed if we paid rent. Can you believe that I didn't speak? She's acting like we owe her something, like she gave us anything. I opened the fridge, closed it. No space. All theirs. He sat down, scrolled his phone, mumbled, "Just need to hang in a few months. Once things settle, we'll get Mom to sign it over. Then we're solid." I walked out before I said anything I'd regret, because I didn't regret what I was about to do. Reese slammed the cabinet. "I told you, stop moving her formula." She was loud on purpose. Aunt Naomi had just arrived with a casserole. Reese's voice sliced through the quiet kitchen. "I can't find anything in this place anymore," she added louder now, "because someone keeps reorganizing without asking." I didn't move. Naomi blinked. "Everything okay?" Reese turned her tone, switching instantly. "It's just been hard, new baby, no sleep. And honestly, Velma's been a little off, forgetting things. She snapped at Darren yesterday over spoons." That wasn't true. But Naomi's face changed. I started to answer, but Reese touched Naomi's arm. "It's probably just exhaustion. But we're watching it." Naomi gave me a look I couldn't read. She left after 15 minutes. Didn't touch the coffee I made. That night, Darren barely said a word. Just nodded at his phone and said Naomi texted. "She said you might need a checkup." My stomach dropped. "You think I'm losing it?" I asked, calm level. He didn't answer. The next day, I found out Margaret from church had hosted a gathering. I wasn't invited. I checked the group thread. I was still in it, but quiet now. No updates. No tags. One of the cousins unfollowed me online. Another left a comment on Reese's photo. "You're such a strong mama. Keep protecting your family." I clicked out. I sat on the porch and stared at the yard. Reese walked past the screen door, talking on speaker. "Yeah, it's been rough. Velma's been having these little spells, like confusion. She moved the baby monitor to the garage, can you believe it?" That was a lie. A stupid, deliberate lie. I'd moved it from the garage to the hallway. Darren had unplugged it while looking for an outlet. They were building a version of me I didn't recognize. Unstable, forgetful, a burden, and people were buying it. It didn't take long. A few careful words, a few missing truths, a look, a nod. By the end of the week, I had 3 voicemails from old friends, polite, clipped, full of concern. None of them asked me directly what was going on. They'd already decided. I walked back inside. Reese had my planner open on the counter. The baby's name was scribbled into doctor slots that used to be mine. I said nothing. I just picked up the planner, closed it, took it with me to the back room. I opened the file again, laid it flat on the table, wrote a note on the first page. "Don't confuse my silence for weakness." Then I called Mr. Halperin, the lawyer Robert used to meet with once a year. He answered on the second ring. I said only what needed saying. "Hello, it's Velma Hart. I'm ready to activate the clause." He didn't ask which one. He just said, "Understood. Let's meet Monday." I poured the coffee first. Black. Strong. No sugar. Just heat and silence. Then I sat at the kitchen table and opened my notebook. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw plates. I just started writing dates, times, moments. Like a ledger, but for trust. May 4th. Reese accused me of losing the stroller. She had left it in the trunk. May 7th. Darren used my card again, 6211. Shell gas. May 9. Reese told the neighbor I had memory lapses. I don't. I kept the notebook tucked under the cushion on the back porch chair. Not hidden. Just quiet. Like me. Every night when the baby cried and Reese sighed loud enough for the neighbors to hear, I rocked her. Whispered soft. Let the house settle around me like fog. And I listened. To Reese on the phone with her sister. She's so passive. It's like living with a ghost. To Darren muttering about me not getting the hint. To the way no one said thank you anymore when I folded their towels. I didn't answer. But I did take pictures. The crumpled receipts. The hospital bills. The grocery total that drained my account again. I photographed Reese's weekly planner on the fridge, the one where she'd scratched out my dentist appointment to fit her hair consult. And I started recording. Only clips. Short, legal. Her voice when she snapped over nothing. His voice when he said she'll crack eventually. One night, I left my phone on the bookshelf and walked away. Let it record the room while they talked. She won't fight, Reese said. It's not in her. It doesn't have to be, Darren answered. We'll just wear her out. I played it back twice. Then I saved it. Uploaded it to the drive Mr. Halperin had sent me. Password locked. Confirmed receipt. Next morning, I served them both coffee. Smiled. Asked how the baby slept. They said fine. Didn't ask how I did. That was fine too. Because I wasn't collecting kindness anymore. I was collecting evidence. That night when Reese complained about the water pressure and Darren said we should redo the bathroom once the house is ours. I didn't blink. I wrote that down too. I checked the camera by the door. Still working. Robert installed it after the first break-in 10 years ago. Still solid. Still silent. I added one line to the notebook before bed. May 12th. They think I'm sleeping. I'm recording. Then I turned off the light. Let the house go quiet. And listened to the creaks of a plan that had already begun. I signed my name once. Then again. Then once more. The notary, a woman with tight curls and sharp eyes, stamped the corner with firm hands. She didn't ask questions. She just read what I gave her. Nodded and said, "Initial here." I did. The new clause was clear. If I became incapacitated or misrepresented by anyone in the household, verbally, financially, or medically, the trust would activate with a new executor. One name only. Not Darren's, not Reese's. Mr. Halperin's. The notary placed the final stamp. "You're covered," she said, sliding the documents into a heavy envelope. I handed her cash in an unmarked envelope. She didn't count it, just nodded. Professional, discreet, gone in 6 minutes. Back home, I waited until the house was empty. Then I sat on the living room floor. Opened the envelope. Read every line again slowly this time. My eyes traced each letter like a boundary drawn in ink. Then I pulled the book from the bottom shelf. The Velveteen Rabbit. Worn spine. Pages soft. Darren's name still scribbled inside the front cover in red crayon. I hadn't read it in years. I flipped to the middle. Found the scene where the rabbit asks what it means to be real. I slid the green envelope into the middle of the book. Shut it gently. Held it there. Robert had read this to Darren when he was sick, rocking him with a voice full of steady calm. I used to think that story was about love. Now I knew it was about staying even when they tried to throw you out. I tucked the book back between the encyclopedias and an old cookbook. No one ever touched that shelf anymore. Later, Darren asked if I could pick up baby ointment from the pharmacy. I said I wasn't feeling well. He frowned. "Everything okay? I'm just tired." He didn't ask more. I wasn't lying. I was tired. But not the way he thought. I was tired of being erased by people who never built what they now lived in. Tired of folding towels for a woman who used my car and posted lies about me with filtered smiles. But I wasn't weak. I was ready. I called Halperin again that night. Confirmed the green envelope was a backup. Originals stayed with him. He said one more document and we're fully protected. I'll bring it Thursday, I said. He paused. You're doing well, Velma. Most people wait too long. I'm not most people. He chuckled. No, you're not. I hung up. Walked into the nursery. Reese had left a bottle on the side table. Half full. Sour. I threw it out. Wiped down the table. Tucked the stuffed rabbit back into the crib. Then I went to my room. Locked the door. Sat on the edge of the bed with a fresh mug of coffee. And opened a second folder Robert never finished. Inside, a handwritten list of phone numbers. At the top, appraiser, title office, county clerk. Underlined twice HOA contact, ask about lien block. I pulled out my own pen, started a new page. I opened the mail by the sink. Water ran. The baby cried. Reese shouted something about wipes. Darren clomped through the hallway in boots he never took off indoors. Noise filled the house. But I stood still. The envelope was from the electric company. Nothing urgent, nothing strange. Just a beige windowed letter with my name printed, Wrong Velna Hart. That alone made me pause. Inside a standard change of ownership notice. Per your request, it read, we have begun the transfer process to update account ownership. I hadn't made any request, but Reese had. Her name was typed on the bottom line, New Responsible Party, Reese M. Holloway. Under that, my signature. Only it wasn't. It was a copy. A practiced one. Slanted right looped just enough. But wrong. Wrong because I never signed anything. Wrong because it was done behind my back. Wrong because they didn't even try to tell me. I reread the form. Twice. They weren't just staying here. They were replacing me. One account at a time. One document at a time. I folded the letter, slipped it into my back pocket, and turned off the water. Walked into the living room and looked at the people sitting in my house. Reese held the baby in one hand and scrolled with the other. Darren stared at the TV like he was owed the quiet. I didn't speak. I picked up my purse, went to the bedroom, closed the door softly. Then I pulled out the folder again, added the letter, labeled the tab forgery. I sat at the desk and opened my laptop, logged into the county assessor's page, checked the title. Still mine. No transfer filed. But now I knew what they were trying. They weren't waiting for permission. They were setting groundwork. Soft theft. Quiet. Padded with diapers and excuses. I opened another browser tab, downloaded a blank utility authorization form, then I printed it. Signed it the correct way, called the electric company. Hello, I said, voice calm. I'd like to formally revoke a fraudulent ownership transfer request. I have the letter. I have proof of forgery. And I'd like this flagged. The man on the line sounded nervous. We'll escalate this to our fraud unit. May we email you a declaration of intent to retain ownership? Send it. I gave them Halpern's office address, not mine. I wasn't letting anything else land in this house unfiltered. The email came in 5 minutes later. I printed it, signed it, sealed it in a second green envelope, marked the front official correction, utilities. Then I slid it into the same copy of the Velveteen Rabbit. The house was quiet now. I stepped back out. Reese was breastfeeding, her eyes still locked on her phone. Darren looked up. Everything okay? Everything's fine, I said. He nodded like he believed me. I sat at the table, poured myself a cup of coffee, and watched steam rise. And under the table I made a list of every bill in my name. The ones they used, the ones they tried to move. One by one I started calling. I parked 2 blocks away, walked the rest on purpose, wore gray slacks, a clean blouse, no jewelry. Just the documents in a manila folder clutched under my arm. Howard Greer's office sat behind a strip mall bakery and a closed-down insurance firm. His name wasn't on a sign, just a brass plate near the buzzer, HG Legal. I rang once. He answered himself. Velma, he said, opening the door, voice warm but brisk. Come in. Coffee, no. Let's begin. He didn't waste time. We sat across from each other at a narrow oak desk. His walls held no certificates, no photos, just a clock and a printout of state codes pinned near the lamp. I opened the folder, spread out the letters, copies, screenshots, then the green envelope, the trust addendum, the updated will. He scanned each item without pause, marking corners with sticky tabs. When he reached the forged utility form, he exhaled once sharp. Brazen, he said, but stupid. You flagged it already, I nodded. He tapped the table. Good. That's the kind of clean early move we need. Next, the county records. Original deed. Title in my name. Still untouched. Reese and Darren don't appear anywhere on this, he asked. No. He smiled. Not smug. Satisfied. That makes this easier. No transfers. No disputes. Just proof of intent to defraud. I handed him the recordings next. 2 USB drives. 1 backup. Labeled. Dated, I said. Their voices. No editing. He didn't blink. Just slipped them into a drawer. I leaned back. He tapped a pen twice. Velma. You're not losing your home. You're reclaiming it. My chest didn't swell. It settled. Because I'd known. But now it was official. We'll begin with a cease and desist letter. You'll remain calm. Polite. Civil. But we'll add legal weight behind you now. And if they escalate, they will, I said. He didn't argue. If they escalate, we're ready, he said. I signed the new representation forms. He notarized them on the spot. He asked if I wanted to press criminal charges. Not yet, I said. I want the house. Not jail. For now, he replied. He walked me out the back way, said, You'll be hearing from me in 3 days. Watch the mail. I nodded. I'll have the book ready. He raised a brow. I filed the envelope, I said. In the Velveteen Rabbit. He smiled for the first time. Smart. Back in the car, I didn't start the engine right away. Just sat. Looked down at my hands. Steady, clean, unshaking. When I got home, no one was there. Just bottles on the counter, a bib on the floor. Reese's charger hanging out of the wall like a root yanked from dry soil. I picked it up, plugged it in. Then I walked to the hallway, past the baby's room, and opened the closet by the laundry. Pulled out Robert's old fireproof safe. Dial still stiff, but it turned. Inside, I laid the originals down one by one. Title. Trust. Letter from the electric company. My new will. Then I locked it. Wrote today's date on the label and went back to the kitchen to cook dinner like nothing had changed. I opened the safe again, took out the trust, read the fine print this time. The clause sat quiet in the middle of page 3, buried between maintenance provisions and medical emergencies. Any party residing in the property without the grantor's written authorization shall be considered in breach of the living trust. All such residency forfeits trust protection and may be subject to eviction. I circled it, then underlined it, then copied it into an email to Mr. Greer. His reply came 20 minutes later. Perfect. That's our leverage. I'm drafting the eviction package. He didn't need anything else. I'd already done the rest. That afternoon, I walked the house with my phone, photographed everything. Reese's bags stacked by the front door. Her makeup spread across my bathroom counter. Baby gear stuffed into drawers. The stroller parked in the middle of the hallway. I took short clips of sound, too. Her voice raised. Her jokes about finally getting to decorate without Velma's clutter. Darren's silence after each one. The next morning, I printed it all. Full-color photos. Time-stamped. Short statements below each one. This room is mine. Reese repurposed it without permission. This vehicle belongs to me. Reese has used it daily without insurance. These groceries were purchased with my debit card. Unauthorized. I clipped the bundle and walked it to the FedEx box down the street. Sent overnight to Greer's office. I made a second copy for myself, slid it into the red folder marked primary. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I made pancakes. Not for them. For me. I sat alone at the table and ate slowly, watching the syrup run, watching the light stretch across the tile floor. No one thanked me. No one noticed. Darren walked in an hour later, asked if I'd seen his hoodie. In the laundry, I said. He mumbled something. Walked out. Later that night, I got an alert. New login to my bank portal, same IP address. My old tablet. Reese's. I didn't react. Just forwarded the login to Mr. Greer. He called immediately. She accessing funds. Just looking. So far. Keep the tablet out of the house. I found it under the couch, logged out everything, then slid it into the trash bin in the garage. Deleted. Untraceable. Then I poured a fresh cup of coffee, walked back to the safe, and added a new envelope. This one labeled Digital Breach Attempt, Oct 3. Every line they crossed, I noted. Every assumption they made, I logged. They thought kindness was an invitation. It wasn't. It was a test. And they were failing. I checked the front window before bed. Reese's car was gone. Darren's keys were still on the hook. They'd stopped asking me to babysit. Said I was too scattered, so I let them call in Reese's cousin instead. I watched her text on the couch for 3 hours while the baby wailed from the next room. I didn't say a word. I just wrote her name down, and under it, untrained caregiver, no parental consent. I added it to the file. I brewed 2 extra cups, added sugar to Reese's, left Darren's black, carried both in gently, like nothing had shifted. I thought you two could use a break, I said. Reese blinked. Darren looked suspicious. I placed the cups on the kitchen island. Sat down, waited. I was thinking, I said maybe it's time we talked about that dream house you two always wanted. Reese perked up. Darren's arms folded, but his posture loosened. You've been here long enough, I said. I know it's not ideal. I've been thinking maybe I help you two get something started. Co-sign maybe, just to get it going. Their eyes flicked to each other. Silence. Then Reese smiled, the first real one in weeks. That's really generous, Velma, Mom Darren corrected, his voice cautious. Reese didn't repeat it, but she nodded. I kept going. I know the market's rough. I've got equity here. Good credit. If I help with paperwork, maybe a bank listens. I just want peace. I watched her shoulders drop, watched the greed light up behind her smile. Darren sat forward. You'd really do that? Help us buy, I'd consider it, I said. If I felt we were all aligned? No more tension, just support. Reese leaned in. Of course. I've always wanted us to be close. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened a drawer. Pulled out a blank lease template I'd printed weeks ago. Would you mind signing a short-term rental agreement for now? I said lightly, just to show banks that I have my affairs in order. Clean paperwork, full occupancy. Reese hesitated. Darren said, It's just on paper, right? Exactly, I said. Won't affect anything else. Just helps me keep records tidy. Reese took the pen, signed. So did Darren. I placed it carefully into a yellow folder, marked it, signed rental, voluntary. Later that day, I brought Reese a scarf I found tucked away in the laundry. Matches your coat, I said. I thought of you. She softened again. Thanks, Mom. The word didn't sting. It registered as fake. But I let it sit. Darren started leaving me voice memos, asking if I needed anything from the store, if I wanted anything from takeout. They weren't kindness. They were bribes. They thought I was back in their pocket, but I was documenting everything. Their tone, their shift, their sudden reversal. Reese made coffee the next morning, handed me a mug, said, You're part of this family. I know I haven't always acted like it. I smiled, took a sip, and later I typed out, Phase 2 softening. They called me Mom 5 more times that week. Reese brought me a bakery cupcake on Friday. Darren asked if I could call the insurance company and help check rates. I don't mind being the boring adult, I said. You just send me the info. Every word from me was measured. Every kindness was a setup. They thought the door was open. They didn't realize it only swung one way. I scrubbed the kitchen island, wiped every counter, vacuumed twice. They didn't ask me to. They assumed. Reese ordered balloons, streamers, a 2-tiered cake I didn't touch. She taped ultrasound photos onto the walls like wallpaper. She moved my framed wedding picture from the hallway shelf into a cabinet, didn't mention it. I found it later, face down next to old chargers and paper manuals. The front door opened at noon. Guests filed in, Reese's friends, cousins I'd only met once, neighbors I didn't recognize. I poured drinks, cleaned spills, took jackets. Reese handed me a folded cardigan. Can you store this? Mom? Her voice was syrupy, staged. I nodded, carried it into my bedroom, the one I no longer slept in. When I came back, she was posing for a photo, holding the baby, kissing his cheek. The photographer, a girl with glitter on her nails, asked, "Do we want a shot with all the grandmas?" Reese shook her head. "Oh, his other grandma lives out of state. We're keeping it simple." I stood behind the kitchen archway. No one looked over. I brought out more ice. When I tried to refill drinks, someone waved me off. They said, "Just leave it, Velma. You don't need to fuss." Reese stood by the fireplace, later one arm on Darren's shoulder. "We're making this place ours," she said loudly. "Finally feels like a real home." People clapped. Darren didn't look at me once. I walked back to the kitchen, folded napkins, stacked empty plates. My back ached. My name hadn't been spoken once all afternoon. Someone opened the fridge without asking, took a bottle, closed it with their foot. Another asked, "Do you still pay the mortgage, Reese? Or is it yours now?" She laughed. "Let's just say things are lining up." I didn't say anything. I just wrote it down later in my notebook. Things are lining up. Greer would want that phrasing. They played music. Someone danced with a baby sling strapped across her chest. Darren poured champagne for the neighbors. Someone knocked over a lamp. No one cleaned it up. I moved toward it with a cloth, and Reese said, "Oh, Mom, just relax. This is our day, ours." I wiped the base anyway. When the cake was cut, they called everyone, except me. I got the plastic knife from the trash later, cleaned it, put it back in the drawer. Around 6 people started leaving. I handed out coats. Darren gave nods. Half hugs. Reese said, "Next time at our new place, maybe." She didn't notice me freeze. I smiled, nodded, closed the door behind the last guest. Reese walked into the kitchen, flicking on lights. "Do you mind clearing the counters?" she said. "We're just exhausted." I picked up a plate, then another. They went into the sink. I didn't speak. I didn't stop. By 9, the house was quiet again. Balloons sagged. Glitter littered the floor. A half-eaten cake sweated under a sheet of foil. I made a pot of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, alone. Then I reached into the red folder and added one line, claimed ownership publicly, Oct. 14. I underlined it. Then I turned to the last page of the rental agreement, signed my initials again, just once, just enough. Then I waited. I opened the front door before he rang the bell. Howard Greer stepped in, wearing a dark gray suit. He nodded once. "You ready?" I said nothing, just pointed toward the living room. Laughter spilled out. Reese's college friends were drinking on my couch. Darren's co-workers hovered around the baby making small talk. Cake plates clattered. Music played from my speaker. Howard didn't wait. He walked right in. Reese turned wine glass in hand. Can we help you?" Howard's voice was calm, precise. "I'm here on behalf of the property owner," he said. "I have documents to deliver regarding unlawful residency." The room fell silent. Darren stood. "Wait, what? Who called you?" "I did," I said. Every head turned. I stepped forward, handed Howard the yellow folder. He opened it, pulled out the notarized lease agreement, the property clause, the updated trust. This, he said, holding up the papers, is an official eviction notice. Your tenancy was voluntary. The agreement is terminated effective immediately. Reese dropped her glass. It shattered. Darren's face drained. You can't do this, he said, voice rising. You said you'd help us buy. I said I'd consider it, I interrupted. But this house, it was never yours to take. Reese stepped forward, red in the face. You're kicking us out with a baby. You forged my name, I said. You filed a false utility transfer. You claimed ownership during a party I wasn't invited to speak at. Reese opened her mouth. Shut it. Howard handed them copies. You have 10 days to vacate. I suggest you use them wisely. Darren's co-worker muttered something and stepped back. A woman I'd never seen before said, Did she say forged? Howard turned. We have signatures, witnesses, audio. Reese laughed too loud. This is insane. This is my house. I looked her in the eye. It never was. Darren clenched his jaw. You're doing this now. In front of everyone? I nodded. It's where you made the mistake. Publicly, someone whispered near the fireplace. Howard added, If you interfere with the owner's peace or attempt retaliation, we'll file restraining orders. A pause. Then Darren's voice cracked. Mom, please. I raised my hand. Your stay here was never permanent. Neither was my silence. I turned and walked to the kitchen. Howard followed. Outside, the porch lights clicked on. Inside, no one laughed anymore. Plates sat half-eaten. Frosting melted into paper napkins. A balloon deflated with a quiet hiss. I poured myself coffee. Howard leaned against the counter. That went smoother than I expected. They underestimated me. He smiled. They always do. I sipped. Looked out the window. Reese had her phone out. Darren rubbed his temples. Guests began to slip out. Quietly. Awkwardly. Some offered polite waves. No one stayed to help clean. I didn't mind. I had everything I needed. Howard placed a second envelope on the counter. Filed with the county this morning. I nodded. Picked it up. Slid it into the red folder. Then I stepped back into the living room. Darren stared at me like I'd vanished. Reese stood rigid, clutching the baby. I'll give you till Friday, I said. After that, the locks change. No one answered. Only the baby made a sound. The door closed behind the last guest. I locked it. No one moved. I walked into the kitchen. Filled the kettle. Measured out the coffee. My hands were steady. Darren followed. His shoes creaked on the tile. He didn't speak at first. Then softly, like he didn't want to hear himself, he said, You didn't have to do that. I didn't answer. I reached for the mugs. You could have just talked to me. Still nothing. I opened the cabinet, took down the sugar. I mean, God, Mom, we have a baby. I stirred slowly. Let the sound of the spoon against ceramic fill the silence. He leaned against the fridge. Reese was just trying to make it easier for us. I poured the coffee, took a sip. He waited, fidgeted. You made us look awful. I turned then. Not angry, just tired. You did that, I said. All I did was give it a frame. His jaw tensed. It was temporary. You said that after the second week. Then the second month. He looked down, picked at a scratch on the fridge handle. You used to be kind. I set the mug down. I used to be quiet. You liked that better. He winced. Behind him, the hallway light flickered. No one came out. He took a step forward. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I said. But I know whose name is on the documents. He flinched again. Reese didn't come to the doorway. She was waiting like always for me to fold first. I didn't. Darren sighed. You're serious? I nodded once. He looked around. Like the walls had just changed color. This house used to feel like home, he muttered. For who I asked. He didn't answer. I picked up my mug and walked past him. In the hallway, I stopped by the bookshelf, ran my fingers along the spines, checked for the green envelope, still there. In the living room, Reese stood. Her arms were crossed. The baby was asleep in the bassinet. She looked at me like I was a stranger. I didn't say a word. She broke first. "We'll need boxes," she said. I nodded. Then I walked upstairs to my room. I closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. It still smelled like lavender from the sachets I kept in the drawer. The only flowers I allowed in the house. Not trendy, not fancy, just mine. Downstairs, no one raised their voice. No one made coffee. No one spoke first. Greer moved fast. By Monday morning, the utility company had a notarized affidavit. The forgery wasn't subtle. My name twisted into loops. I never used the wrong middle initial. The clerk said, "We've seen this before." They opened an investigation. He sent everything. The envelope included receipts, baby formula, groceries, gas, every charge from my card. He compiled the camera timestamps the day Reese used my car without asking the text she sent Darren. "Just act dumb if she notices the charges." He found that too. And then he called Reese's father. I didn't ask him to, but I didn't stop him either. That afternoon, I heard yelling on speakerphone. Greer held it at arm's length. Reese's father wasn't quiet. "You let her forge signatures." She said she'd handle it. "That's not handling. That's fraud." Reese's father pulled out of their escrow. No down payment, no loan guarantee, no new condo in Portland. Darren stayed silent during that call. I didn't. I emailed the church group a thank you for the support they hadn't offered, attached 2 clips. One of Reese saying she's in the way. Another of Darren muttering, "We'll just wait until it's legally ours." No reply. But people read it. I saw names leave the group chat. And then one of them accidentally or on purpose, I'll never know, forwarded the private family thread, the one where Reese wrote, "She's just a free nanny. No clue what's coming." The thread had 15 members. Now it had none. I printed it, put it in the same red folder with the deed, the trust, and the velveteen rabbit. Darren knocked on my door that night. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. "I didn't know she sent that," he said. It was her idea. Was the forged form her idea? A pause? No. He stood there a moment longer, then left. I didn't cry. I folded towels, brewed coffee, sat with a pad of paper and wrote down what would happen next. Not a list, just facts. Friday, lock change. Saturday, inspection. Sunday, quiet. Monday, start again. Reese didn't speak to me for 3 days. The baby cried. I didn't go in. She posted a vague status online. Some people will pretend to be victims while they play judge. 3 people liked it. None offered a place to stay. The facts outlived the spin. Lies lost traction. I kept copies of everything, digital and paper. 1 folder with Greer, 1 locked here, 1 with a friend in San Marcos. Nothing disappeared this time. Darren stopped asking, Reese stopped trying, and I stopped bending. He knocked just before dusk. No car in the driveway, no baby crying. Just Darren standing with his hands stuffed in his pockets like a boy who broke something valuable. I opened the door halfway. He didn't look me in the eye. "I'm not staying long." I didn't answer. He sighed, shifted his weight. Reese left. Took the baby to her sister's. Said she's tired of the fallout. I waited. He rubbed his face. They didn't even let me hold him, just packed and left. Still, I said nothing. He looked over my shoulder into the house. "It's clean. It always was." His face twitched. "Look, I don't know what to do." I held the door steady. "I've been sleeping in my car since yesterday," he said. "I showered at a gym. And now you're here. I didn't come for sympathy." "Good." His jaw tensed. "I just need a few nights. That's it." The silence sat between us. Heavy. Honest. "You had nights," I said. "You had months. You had rooms, I know. You had the benefit of every doubt, every dish, every dollar. He swallowed hard. I didn't mean, but you did, I said, voice steady. You meant it when you let her call me useless. You meant it when you forged my name, when you waited for me to die, or move, or hand over the title. I was desperate. So was I. Every time I folded sheets on the couch, every time I covered the gas bill you pretended was yours. His hands dropped to his sides. I'm your son, he said, and I'm your mother, but you didn't act like a son. You acted like a squatter. His face went pale. I opened the door a little wider, just enough to make the gesture feel real. Not now, I said. Maybe not ever. He stepped back. I closed the door. Slowly, without slamming, without anger, just final. Behind the glass, I watched him stand for a moment, look around, then walk off down the street. He didn't look back. I turned off the porch light, walked to the kettle, reached for my mug, still warm from this morning, still mine. I parked 2 blocks away, walked in with a folder and no jewelry. Inside the bank, the air hummed with soft clicks and quiet greetings. The trust officer met me with a professional smile. Not warm, not cold, just neutral. I liked that. He gestured to a chair. Take your time. I didn't need time. I want to update the living trust, I said, laying out the folder. Remove my son as successor trustee. Permanently. He nodded, flipped to the tab. Effective immediately. No problem. Who will replace him? I pulled out another sheet. I want to name the new beneficiary as the Ashland County Education Fund. Specifically, a scholarship for first-generation trade school applicants. In Robert's name. He looked up. I'll write the mission statement myself, I said. He never believed college was the only way. He worked with his hands, built everything we had. The man paused. That's unusual. Most people leave it in the family. I met his eyes. They had their chance. He nodded once. No more questions. We signed, stamped, filed. It took 12 minutes. The house, the land, the account, all shifted. He handed me the confirmation. Would you like to notify your previous successor trustee? No, I said. He'll find out when it matters. He didn't push. Back home, I brewed coffee, stronger than usual, sat by the window, opened the drawer. The green envelope still sat beneath the velveteen rabbit. Untouched. Unnecessary now, but I didn't throw it away. I pulled out Robert's old keychain, still heavy with rust, still shaped like a wrench. I added the new key to it. For the scholarship account. One life built houses. Another gave someone the tools. The hallway felt quieter now, like the house had exhaled. No cries, no arguing, no slammed cabinets, only my footsteps, my voice, my rules. I folded the trust confirmation, slipped it behind the photo of Robert on our wedding day. He wore a crooked tie and a grin he never fixed. I kept it, Rob, I whispered. And I gave it to someone who'll build, not break. The kettle clicked off. The day moved on. So did I. I woke before the sun. No crying, no footsteps. Just the old creak of floorboards under my own weight. I boiled water. Opened the cabinet. Reached for the mug I hadn't used in months. White ceramic. Thick handle. Slight crack on the lip. On one side, faded words in black block print still here. I poured the coffee slowly. No rush. No one else to serve. The porch creaked as I stepped outside. The air was cool. The street still empty. I sat. Sipped. Let the silence settle. The roses had bloomed again. Wild this time, curling around the edge of the fence Robert built. I hadn't pruned them. They didn't seem to mind. A squirrel darted across the yard. Birds picked at the feeder. Somewhere down the block, a screen door clapped shut. But no one yelled. No one glared. No one took. Just breath. Just stillness. I pulled the robe tighter. Watched the steam rise from the mug. No texts, No knocks, no threats. Yesterday had closed a door. Today opened one. The eviction would finalize in 4 days. But they were already gone. The lawyer's office sent over confirmation. No appeal, no signatures, just absence. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cry. I just kept sipping. When you survive noise long enough, silence stops being scary. It becomes holy. I finished the coffee, walked the mug to the sink, didn't rinse it, let the stain sit. Proof of peace, of presence, still here.